Veteran and his dog took shelter in his grandma's old cabin. Then they found a secret worth millions. They said the cabin was empty. They said his grandmother died quietly, with no unfinished business. But the night Noah Caldwell heard Hawk growl like he used to in combat, he realized one terrifying truth. Some secrets don't stay buried. Some of them wait for the right soldier to come home. And this time, the first one to sense danger wasn't Noah. It was the dog who had never once been wrong. The road up to High Timber felt like it was swallowing Noah Caldwell whole. Snow drifted sideways across the windshield, blurring the pines into a grey wall. Hawk sat in the back seat, silent, steady, the way he always was when the world got too loud for Noah. The German shepherd's ears tracked each groan of the engine, each crack of ice under the tires. He didn't whine, didn't shift, just watched. Noah pulled up to the cabin his grandmother left him, a weathered structure tucked between two leaning spruces. It was older than memory, older than the stories she used to tell him on summer nights when the porch still smelled like cedar. He hadn't seen it in 20 years. Now it looked as if the forest had tried to take it back. He killed the engine, let the quiet settle. For a moment he didn't move. The silence pressed against his chest like a hand. Just him. Just the dog. Just the cold. Hawk touched his shoulder, a soft push of the nose. Time to move. Inside, the air smelled of dust and old pine sap. A blanket still sat folded over the rocking chair by the window, the one his grandmother used when her bones hurt. Noah swallowed, set his rucksack down, and let the space breathe around him. Hawk padded in and stopped abruptly. His body went rigid, tail low, head angled toward the stone fireplace at the far end of the room. Not a sound came from him, not even a breath. His entire posture locked into something Noah hadn't seen in years. Combat stillness. Noah froze. He knew that stance, knew what it meant. Easy, boy. But Hawk did not relax. His gaze fixed on the base of the hearth, a point of shadow just beneath the lowest row of stones. His muscles trembled, not from fear, but from something sharper, older. Noah stepped closer. The room felt colder with every inch. The fireplace looked ordinary. Old stone, dark mortar, soot stains. He crouched and brushed his fingers against the rocks. Nothing moved. Nothing felt warm. Hawk let out a low, guttural sound that pulled Noah back to dusty alleys and sun-bleached rubble overseas. The sound Hawk made before they found tripwires. The sound that had once saved Noah's life. Noah's pulse tightened. "All right, I hear you." He stood, grabbed a flashlight from his pack, and knelt at the hearth again. The beam cut across the stones, and something subtle shifted in the light. A faint line, too clean, too straight. A seam. He pressed his fingers to it. Cold stone, cold mortar. But as he pushed gently, the hair on Hawk's back rose like a warning flaring up from the past. Noah pulled his hand back. His heart thudded hard once, then steadied in that old familiar way. The way it used to on missions when silence meant danger more than sound ever could. A gust slammed against the cabin walls, rattling the windows. Snow sifted down from the roof. Somewhere deep in the woods, a branch cracked. It echoed through the cold like something walking where it shouldn't be. Noah grabbed the crowbar leaning by the door, the one he had bought on the way into town. He wedged it into the seam. The first push gave nothing. The second cracked the mortar like a bone snapping clean. Hawk didn't move, didn't blink. The stone shifted, then slid free into Noah's hands with surprising weight. Behind it, darkness. A small cavity carved into the foundation. Noah angled the flashlight. His breath stilled. Inside, wrapped in brittle cloth, lay an olive-green metal container and an old leather notebook tied with a fraying cord. The notebook's cover bore a name written in his grandmother's blocky handwriting. M. Caldwell, 1983. Noah felt the heat leave his fingers. She had hidden something she never told anyone, something she never meant to be found unless the world forced it out. Hawk whined softly. Not fear, recognition, as if he had sensed this secret long before Noah stepped into the room. Noah lifted the box carefully. It was heavier than it looked, cold, familiar in a way that made his stomach tighten. He set it on the table but didn't open it. Not yet. His hands hovered above the latch. A faint thump sounded outside. Snow shifting. Footsteps? Or wind? Hawk snapped his head toward the window, body tightening into that lethal, controlled line Noah hadn't seen since their last deployment. Noah's throat went dry. This wasn't just the past resurfacing. Something else stood at the edge of the trees, watching. He shut off the flashlight, plunging the cabin into darkness except for the last faint glow sneaking through the frosted windows. Hawk's silhouette stood firm, ears forward, breath steady. Noah reached down and brushed Hawk's shoulder. This place was supposed to be quiet, supposed to be healing. But in the stillness, Noah understood something he didn't want to admit. Hawk hadn't found a home. He had found a threat, and whatever secret his grandmother left behind, someone else still wanted it buried. Hawk let out a single, low growl. Noah felt it in his bones. The welcome to high timber was over. Something had already begun. The fire Noah lit that morning barely warmed the cabin. The logs hissed, sparks climbing upward before dying against the cold stone. He stood close to it, palms out, trying to pull heat into his bones. Hawk sat a few feet away, staring at the hearth again. Same posture as last night, same locked focus. No bark, no warning. Just that eerie, disciplined stillness. Noah lowered his hands. You're still on it, huh? Hawk didn't shift. Only the small tremor in his shoulders betrayed the tension simmering beneath his fur. Outside, the wind rattled the shingles. Snow slid from the roof in heavy sheets, landing with soft thuds that should have made Hawk flinch. But the dog didn't turn. Whatever held his attention was right there inside the cabin, not out in the woods. Noah crouched beside him. Show me. The dog didn't move, didn't need to. His gaze traced a very specific point in the stonework, right at the base of the fireplace where dust clung to uneven mortar lines. Noah grabbed the crowbar again. His pulse ticked faster than he wanted to admit. He pressed the flat end against the stone Hawk had singled out last night. It looked like all the others, cracked and stained from decades of use. But when he shifted the bar left, just a fraction, the stone rocked. Barely. But it moved. Noah froze. Hawk stiffened beside him, but not from fear. More like confirmation. Noah shifted the bar again. The stone wobbled, subtle but deliberate, as if it had been reset long ago and never meant to be touched again. He wedged the crowbar deeper, braced his knee against the hearth, and pushed hard. Mortar cracked, sharp and clean. A seam split open, darker than the rest, free of dust. This space hadn't been exposed in years. One final pull, and the slab slid free into Noah's hands. It was heavier than it looked, the weight of old secrets baked into every inch. Behind it, darkness yawned open. A hollow no bigger than a milk crate stretched into the foundation. Noah raised the flashlight. Dust motes swirled through the beam. The air inside the cavity smelled stale, untouched. And there, nestled against the back wall, sat an olive-green metal case. Military issue. Cold, utilitarian, familiar. Next to it, 3 leather-bound journals stacked neatly, edges cracked with age. A brittle cord wrapped around them once, but had snapped long ago. Beneath the books lay a folded sheet of yellowed paper covered in hand-drawn ink marks. Noah reached in slowly and lifted the items out one by one, placing them on the floor. Hawk finally stepped closer, sniffing the metal case. His tail stayed low, his body tense, but his breathing steadied. Whatever was hidden here, he had sensed it long before Noah ever laid eyes on it. Noah sat cross-legged on the floor, the cold biting through his jeans. He touched the journals first. The covers were rough, the kind of leather that lasted generations. He brushed dust aside and revealed a familiar signature burned into the corner of the top book. Mary Caldwell, his grandmother. Noah's breath caught. She had always been gentle, soft-spoken, the kind of woman who saved buttons in jars and knitted scarves for neighbors. He remembered summers in this cabin, her hands smelling faintly of lavender and wood smoke. She never raised her voice, never kept secrets. At least, that's what he thought. He opened the first journal. The handwriting was hers. Steady, neat. Lines catalogued weather, wildlife, changes in the creek behind the cabin. But a few pages in, the tone shifted. Notes grew sharper, observations more detailed. Saw dead trout along the banks again. Water smells metallic. No one believes me. Noah frowned. He flipped further. 2 men parked near Old Bridge last night. No plates. Carried equipment down to the ravine. Returned without it. The next page. If anything happens to me, the truth is in this cabin. Noah shut the book, pulse thudding in his ears. He reached for the folded paper. When he unfolded it, a hand-drawn map appeared. The ridge behind the cabin. The creek. Several circles marked in ink, each with a rough time stamp beside it. Some circles were crossed out. One was labeled with a name he didn't recognize. Helios. The name sat like a bruise on the page. Noah leaned back, chest tight. His grandmother had been tracking something, and she had been doing it alone. Whatever she found scared her enough to hide evidence inside the walls of her own home. Hawk nudged the metal case next, letting out a low breath. Noah took the hint and opened the latches. They clicked with a reluctant snap. Inside were soil samples sealed in vials, each labeled by hand. Some dated back 15 years. Others were more recent. A thin stack of documents lay underneath. Scientific reports printed on paper yellowed at the edges. Levels of lead, arsenic, benzene, all exceeding federal safety limits. A combination of dread and anger rippled up Noah's spine. This wasn't just wildlife observation. His grandmother had uncovered a contamination pattern, something big enough to warrant secrecy, something worth money, worth silencing. Hawk suddenly stiffened again. Noah's head snapped up. The dog's eyes locked on the front door, ears forward, body poised to spring. A faint crunch sounded outside. Not snow falling, not branches shedding ice, something heavier, someone standing just beyond the porch. Noah rose slowly, rifle already in hand before he realized he'd reached for it. Hawk moved beside him, shoulder to knee, the way he used to during raids. The dog's breath was calm, controlled, a soldier waiting for the shape of danger to reveal itself. Noah inched to the window, lifting one corner of the curtain. Only woods. Only snow. But someone had been there. He felt it. Hawk felt it twice as strongly. The dog's instincts had led them to a secret buried in the stones. And now those same instincts warned that someone else knew the secret had been found. Noah backed away from the window, locking eyes with Hawk. You were right. The dog blinked once, firm and deliberate. Nothing about this cabin was peaceful. Nothing about his grandmother's death was simple. And nothing about the silence outside was safe. Noah set his hand on Hawk's neck, steadying them both. Whatever this secret was, whoever was watching, they weren't done. And neither were he and Hawk. The journals lay open across the table. their pages trembling slightly in the draft slipping through the cabin logs. Noah had read enough field reports in his life to recognize the tone immediately. His grandmother had not written like a hobbyist, not like a woman jotting down nature notes to pass the time. Her handwriting was tight, purposeful, the sentences clipped as if she had documented each detail in fear it might be her last. Hawk sat at the door, body angled low, nose lifted toward the seam where the floor met the wood. Every so often he inhaled sharply, then held that breath like a man listening for footsteps in the dark. Noah kept glancing at him, but the dog's posture never softened. Something outside had Hawk's full attention. Noah forced his eyes back to the first journal. Mary Caldwell, the woman who baked apple pies and knitted sweaters for sick kids in town, had spent the last decade of her life investigating Helios Mining Corp., the largest employer in the region. She wrote about contaminated soil samples, strange metallic smells coming from the creek behind her property, and animals behaving erratically. One line hit Noah square in the gut. The deer drank from the creek again today. Foam at the mouth, collapsed within minutes. Noah rubbed his thumb along the margin, the paper soft from age. He had seen this kind of poisoning overseas. Industrial runoff, heavy metals, toxic waste hidden in places no one monitored. He flipped another page. 2 contractors dumped barrels near the South Ridge. No markings. They covered them before dawn. I followed until they threatened me. Noah felt the air in the room shift. Hawk's ear twitched, but the dog didn't move from the door. He read on. Went into town to report it. Sheriff told me to go home. Said I was imagining things. But the men he spoke to at the diner had the unmarked truck. Another page. If I disappear, do not trust anyone from High Timber. They already chose their side. Noah leaned back in the chair. The journal slipped from his fingers and fell shut with a muted thud. His throat tightened around something hot and sharp. She had been scared. His grandmother had lived her final years under an invisible pressure he had never known anything about. And the town, the same one that held potlucks and July parades, had turned its back on her. Hawk growled. Not loud, not aggressive, just a small warning rumble that vibrated through the floorboards. Noah stood instantly, his palm already gripping the rifle leaning beside the table. He walked toward Hawk, boots brushing against the thin layer of dust near the hearth. What is it? Hawk didn't answer with sound. Instead, he pressed closer to the door, breath controlled, shoulders squared. His tail was still, not tucked, not wagging. A soldier's posture. Noah stepped next to him and listened. At first, nothing. Then the whisper of snow compressing under weight. A single step. Another. Slow. Deliberate. Someone was circling the cabin. Noah's heart ticked faster, the old rhythm returning from somewhere buried in sand and memory. He slid the safety off the rifle and leaned toward the small window above the sink. A figure stood just beyond the tree line, bundled in heavy winter gear, face hidden under a hood, shoulders too broad to be a hiker. They stayed completely still, watching the cabin through the trees. Then they stepped back and vanished into the pines. Noah exhaled, but it felt like he had swallowed glass. Whoever it was, they did not rush away. They withdrew with the confident calm of someone who already knew the land, someone who had been waiting. He crouched beside Hawk. The dog stayed locked in position, eyes fixed where the figure had been. Noah laid a steady hand along Hawk's spine. You saw them before I did. Hawk shifted his weight closer to Noah, muscles tight beneath his fur. His body radiated tension, not fear. Preparedness. He was ready for whatever came next. Noah moved back to the table and opened the second journal. This one was more frantic, margins filled with quick sketches, circles around creek points, a drawing of barrels with a note underneath. The soil singed my fingertips. Something burned through the glove. Noah stopped cold. Chemical burns. Another entry. Helios knows I'm tracking them. Their trucks are moving at night now. Sheriff Crow came here yesterday. Told me to stop poking around or I would ruin the peace this town worked so hard to build. Crow, the name nobody mentioned at the funeral. Hawk growled again, louder this time. Noah snapped his head toward the window. Another sound. Not footsteps this time, a car engine. But too far to see. The hum faded, then cut abruptly like whoever was driving didn't want to be heard. Someone was still out there. Noah returned to the journals, flipping faster now. Halfway through the third one, he found a passage that stopped him cold. Helios is building something under the ridge. They say it is a test facility. It is not. It is a dumping ground. They think they can hide poison in this valley because the town needs the money. I am running out of time. His grandmother had been right. She had been alone, and she had been right. Noah pressed his fingers to his forehead and breathed out hard. Hawk moved away from the door and came to him, nudging his knee, a grounding gesture. Noah rested his hand on the dog's neck. Thanks. The dog's eyes lifted to the window again. The message was clear. This wasn't over. Whoever watched the cabin knew Noah had found something he shouldn't have. Noah gathered the journals, the map, and the metal case. He packed them into his rucksack with tight, deliberate movements. He didn't know what Helios was hiding, but he knew one thing with absolute clarity. His grandmother had died trying to reveal it. And now, someone was watching to make sure he didn't do the same. Hawk moved to the center of the room, ears high, posture sharp. His presence filled the cabin like a warning flare. Noah met his gaze and nodded. All right, boy, we follow your lead. Outside, the snow fell heavier. The woods darkened early, and somewhere between the trees, a stranger paused to listen. The discovery had begun, and someone else had already decided to end it. High timber looked harmless from a distance, a postcard town tucked between snowbanks and pine stands, all pastel storefronts and slow-moving pickup trucks. But Noah felt the shift the moment he drove in with Hawk riding shotgun. The air changed. Eyes followed. People paused mid-conversation as if someone had whispered his name ahead of him. He kept one hand on the wheel, the other resting lightly on Hawk's neck. The dog sat rigid, scanning each street corner, each movement, each stranger. They weren't tourists here. They were targets of curiosity, and curiosity in a place like this carried weight. Noah pulled the truck beside the town hall, a clean white building with a bright red sign declaring, "Welcome to High Timber." It felt more like a warning the closer he came to it. Inside, the heat blasted artificial warmth. A woman in a fitted blazer looked up from behind the reception desk and flashed a smile too wide to be sincere. "You must be Noah Caldwell, Marla Dawn Mayor. We've been expecting you." Noah blinked. Expecting him? Word travels fast in small towns, she offered, stepping around the desk. She extended her hand, her eyes too bright, too polished. "Your grandmother was loved here. Tragic what happened." "What did happen exactly?" he asked. Her smile twitched. Old age, or the cold, hard winters can sneak up on the elderly. That wasn't an answer. It wasn't even close to one. Hawk stood between them, posture stiff, tail still. His nose lifted, nostrils flaring slightly. Noah watched the dog's reaction carefully. Hawk rarely made mistakes. People, on the other hand, made them constantly. Marla folded her hands at her waist. "Anyway, we're glad you're staying in her cabin. Nice to have life up there again." Was starting to look a little empty. Empty wasn't the word. Hiding something was closer. Noah pressed. Did she mention anything unusual in her final months? Anyone give her trouble? Marla's eyes flickered, almost too fast to catch. Trouble? No. She kept to herself. Lovely woman, but imaginative. The way she said imaginative made Noah's jaw tighten. Hawk suddenly shifted. Not a full growl, but a low pulse in his chest aimed directly at Marla. She took a subtle step back, her smile stiffening. He's harmless if you're telling the truth, Noah said. Her smile faltered entirely. Well, we all have our perspective. If you need anything, you know where to find me. He doubted that. Noah led Hawk out, the dog glancing once over his shoulder at Marla. Hawk's hackles didn't rise, but something in him stayed alert. Noah saw it in the way Hawk moved, like he was listening to something Noah couldn't hear. Next stop was the sheriff's office. The building was old brick, windows fogged from the inside. Hawk grew tense as they approached. His breathing changed, slow and controlled, the same practiced rhythm he used on deployment before breaching a doorway. Noah stepped in. One officer nodded, another hurried off as if they had walked into the middle of something. Then a man stepped out from the back room. Tall, broad, eyes cold. Lieutenant Ethan Crow. "You're Mary Caldwell's grandson," he said, voice flat. No welcome, no sympathy. Noah nodded, just checking in. Heard she may have had concerns before she passed. Crow leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Concerns? About what? Her journals mentioned wildlife dying, strange trucks near the ridge, people watching her. Crow's eyes sharpened. People watch everyone in this town. Makes it safe. Hawk moved closer to Noah's leg, body tensing. Noah noticed the dog wasn't looking at Crow. He was looking past him, toward the frosted window where a black SUV sat idling in the snow. Crow followed Noah's gaze, and his jaw tightened a fraction. "That yours?" Noah asked. Crow didn't blink. Department vehicle. Helios sponsored it. The word Helios landed like a weight. Noah stepped toward the window. Hawk followed, but as they neared the SUV, Hawk stopped dead. His entire frame locked the same way he had in the cabin. Nose up, ears pinned forward. Something in that scent or that metal or that engine set him off. Noah knelt beside him. "What do you smell, bud?" Hawk didn't growl. He didn't bark. He inhaled the cold air near the SUV and stiffened harder, the muscles in his neck tightening beneath Noah's hand. Crow watched them from the doorway. "Something wrong with your dog." "Something wrong with your car," Noah replied. Crow's expression didn't change, but his posture did. Shoulders rose half an inch. A tell Noah knew too well. Crow was hiding something. A deputy stepped in from the back. "Lieutenant, we got a call from Helios. They're wanting—" Crow cut him off with a look. Noah caught it. Hawk caught it. Everything about this place was tied to Helios, and everything Helios touched was laced with danger his grandmother had tried to warn him about. Noah turned back to Crow. "Did you check on her the night she died?" Crow didn't move. Weather turned fast that week. We were stretched thin. That wasn't an answer either. Noah walked past him. Hawk stayed glued to his side, but the moment they stepped outside, Noah stopped again. The scent coming from the SUV hung in the air. Faint, chemical, metallic. Hawk's nose twitched violently. Noah knew that smell. Burn pits in Kandahar. Toxic dust that clung to clothing and lungs. Tainted earth. His pulse hammered once in his throat. The past tunneled in, dark and fast. Noise roared in his ears, memories rushing back in a wave he couldn't slow. Buildings shaking, doors blowing inward. Hawk pulling him out from under a collapsed wall. Shouting. Smoke. Someone screaming for a medic who never came. Noah squeezed, his eyes shut. Hawk nudged his leg with a soft, grounding pressure. Noah steadied his breath. "We're fine, boy. I'm fine." But he wasn't. Not anymore. This town wasn't quiet. It wasn't healing. It was a fuse waiting for flame. Noah looked at Hawk. The dog's breath fogged the air. Steady, measured. Noah rested his hand on the dog's shoulder. "We're digging into something real." Hawk's eyes met his. Calm, focused, ready. They got in the truck. Snow drifted across the windshield again. As Noah pulled away, he glanced once in the rearview mirror. Crow stood on the sidewalk watching them go. And behind him, Marla Dawn had come out of the town hall, arms crossed, her smile gone, her face pale with something that looked a lot like fear. Not fear of Noah, fear of what he might uncover. Hawk stared out the window, ears forward. Noah knew that look. The dog wasn't guarding the road. He was tracking danger. And whatever Noah had stepped into in high timber, it was already watching him back. The map lay across the cabin table, edges weighted by rocks so it wouldn't curl. Noah studied it for the third time, tracing the circles his grandmother had drawn. Every one of them sat on remote patches of land Helios had been trying to buy for years. Land the townspeople dismissed as useless. Rocky, hard to farm, harder to build on. Except Helios had wanted it badly. Noah leaned over the map, breath slow. The markings weren't random. Each circle connected to the next like a chain of warnings. The largest one sat on the far side of Ridge 4A, where the creek narrowed and dipped under a natural rock corridor. Hawk stood beside him, tail still, ears forward, watching him, waiting. "All right," Noah whispered. "Show me what she couldn't." They left the cabin before sunrise. The forest was brittle with cold, each step cracking through a thin crust of ice. Hawk ranged ahead, but never out of sight, nose low, breath sharp in the frigid air. He checked every shift of wind, every broken branch, moving with that quiet, purposeful gait that only came back to him when something mattered. Noah followed the map's coordinates, steadily gaining elevation until the trees thinned. The ridge loomed ahead, a stretch of rock and twisted pines bowed under the weight of years of harsh winters. Hawk stopped suddenly. He faced left, body rigid. Noah's pulse kicked once. "What is it?" Hawk didn't answer. He'd gone silent the way he did on deployment when he caught the scent of something human, buried where it shouldn't be. Noah climbed the last few feet to him. That's when he saw it. A patch of snow melted in an odd, circular pattern. Beneath it, the soil was streaked with unnatural colors. Yellow, rust red, a metallic sludge surrounding a ring of disturbed earth. Noah knelt and touched the ground. The soil was warm. Wrong. Chemical heat. His grandmother hadn't imagined any of it. She had been standing on poisoned land. He scanned the tree line. No signs of workers. No new tire tracks. But the ground here had been dug up recently, and poorly covered like someone had done it in a hurry. Or in fear. Hawk sniffed the disturbed patch. His body tightened. He began digging. Noah's breath caught. "Easy there. Let me help." But Hawk ignored him. Dust and dirt flew behind the dog in swift, powerful arcs. The deeper Hawk went, the more frantic Noah felt. Something was there. Something the dog could smell long before Noah could understand it. Then Hawk froze mid-dig. He let out a sound Noah had heard only twice in his life. A low, mournful exhale that vibrated through the ground. Noah dropped to his knees beside him. The hole was deep now, nearly 2 feet down, and at the bottom, fabric emerged through the soil. Old canvas, torn, stained. Noah reached toward it and stopped. His skin prickled. Bones protruded through the cloth. Thin, human. A femur, the curve of a rib. The shape unmistakable, even through the distortion of rot and time. Jesus! Hawk backed up, but not in fear. He sat beside the pit, straight-backed, head high, as if guarding a fallen comrade. Noah lifted the canvas carefully, and something clattered free. A metal dog tag. Except it wasn't military. It was a press credential, worn, nearly unreadable. He brushed away the dirt. The name surfaced like a ghost. Raymond Hale, a freelance journalist, missing for 15 years, rumored to have been chasing environmental conspiracies in the region. Noah remembered the case from headlines long ago. People said he'd run off, had a breakdown, left his car behind. But here he was, hidden under Helios land, buried like waste. Hawk looked at him again. Deep, dark eyes, waiting. Noah swallowed the rising heat in his throat. His grandmother had been investigating this. She had written about men digging at night. She had warned him not to trust the sheriff, not to trust the town, and she had told him if she disappeared, someone had silenced her. Noah sat back in the snow, chest tight, breath shaking. She didn't die of cold or age. They killed her. Hawk stepped forward and rested his head against Noah's arm. The weight was grounding, heavy with understanding. Noah blinked hard once, staring at the bones beneath them. A man who had died for a truth no one listened to. A grandmother who had followed his trail and been buried under it. Hawk nudged the canvas again. Beneath it, a corner of something metal glinted. Noah brushed away more earth. A second container. Smaller. Rusted. He opened it with numb fingers. Inside were flash drives wrapped in plastic, lab samples, handwritten notes, and a folded newspaper clipping. He opened it. Reporter missing after investigating local mining contracts. Noah exhaled slowly, the cold burning in his lungs. Everything fit. Every dot aligned. Helios had poisoned the land, buried evidence, silenced anyone who got too close, and the town helped cover it. A sudden crack echoed through the ridge. Hawk spun toward the trees, growling deep. Noah scanned the woods. A single figure slipped behind a trunk, dark clothing blending into the shadowed forest. Someone had followed them. Someone knew they had found the grave. Noah grabbed the journal from his pack and shoved the new evidence inside. He looked at Hawk. Time to move. The dog didn't wait. He sprinted ahead, silent, efficient, watching the woods with soldier's eyes. Noah followed, heart hammering, one truth burning through his mind. This wasn't just corruption. This was a cover-up built on bones. And now he and Hawk were next on the list. The wind had teeth that night, sharp and restless, rattling the shutters of the old cabin. Noah couldn't sleep. He sat at the table with the map spread open again, Wren's notes piled beside it, and the flash drives he had dug from the earth. Every so often, he glanced at the door, listening for footsteps that didn't belong to the forest. Hawk lay near the hearth, patched and bandaged from the ridge trail, but alert. One ear always angled towards the window. He hadn't relaxed since they'd found the body. Noah rubbed a hand over his face. They're going to come, Hawk. You feel it too. Hawk lifted his head, eyes glinting amber in the low lamplight. He didn't make a sound. He didn't need to. His stillness said enough. Noah had just pushed away from the table when the first bottle hit the cabin. Glass shattered against the front wall. A burst of flame crawled up the wood like a living thing. Noah jerked back as heat flashed across the room. What the... A second bottle smashed through the window, spraying fire across the floorboards. The cabin inhaled flame, as if it had been waiting to burn. Hawk lunged up, barking once, sharp and explosive, a sound Noah hadn't heard in months. Get down! Noah dropped as fire licked up the curtains. Smoke billowed instantly. The heat surged. Hawk sprinted toward the back door, then back to Noah, pacing in frantic half-circles, barking at him, driving him away from the spreading flames. Noah crawled toward the satchel with the evidence. Maps, samples, journals, everything Helios wanted gone. He grabbed it just as a third blast shattered the glass lamp beside him. The room erupted in sparks. Noah, move! The command was instinct more than sound. Hawk barreled into him, teeth gripping Noah's sleeve, yanking him toward the back hallway. The dog wasn't running out. He was dragging Noah out. Flames climbed the cabin walls, fast and vicious. The beams groaned, splitting. The ceiling above the hearth dropped embers like burning snow. Noah pushed himself up, coughing through the smoke. Hawk was already at the rear door, body low, barking with urgency. But before Noah could reach him, a figure appeared outside, silhouetted by the firelight. A masked man. Boots in the snow. He stared through the broken window, then spoke in a low, cold voice. "Stop digging." Noah froze. The man flicked something metallic into the flames. A lighter, still, burning, then ran into the trees. The cabin inhaled fire. The back door buckled. The roof cracked. Smoke turned black and violent. Noah stumbled, trying to reach Hawk, but a beam collapsed between them, sending sparks across the floor. Hawk vanished in the smoke. No. Hawk. Noah shoved through the haze, eyes burning, lungs tearing. The satchel strap dug into his shoulder as he crawled under the fallen beam. Heat blistered his arms. He couldn't see anything except a pulsing orange glow and drifting ash. Then a shape slammed into him again, a heavy body, gasping, whining through clenched teeth. Hawk, his fur was burning at the flank, skin blistered beneath it. But he dragged Noah anyway, pushing him with his chest, forcing him towards the exit. "You came back in." Noah could barely breathe. "You insane, brave thing. You came back in for me." Hawk pulled him through the splintered side door, just as the cabin roof caved in behind them with a roaring collapse. The fire blew outward, lighting the snow in an orange wave. Noah fell into the snowbank outside, choking, coughing, barely gripping the satchel. Hawk collapsed beside him, shaking violently, steam rising from his scorched fur. Noah turned him gently. Hawk's flank was burned deep. His breathing was ragged and too fast. Noah pressed his jacket against the wound, voice trembling. "Stay with me. Hey, buddy, stay here. Stay." Hawk blinked hard. His eyes weren't panicked, not even now. They were fixed on Noah, calm in the way only a warrior who understood the cost could be. Noah's throat tightened. "You saved me. Again. You always—" Hawk pushed his nose into Noah's palm, soft and steady. The gesture was almost defiant. Not dying. Not yet. Not while Noah was speaking like someone giving a eulogy. Noah swallowed the wave in his chest. Okay, we're not done. You hear me? We're not done." Hawk shifted, trying to stand, but his legs trembled. He collapsed again, letting out a choked whine. Noah caught him under the chest, holding him upright. Hawk leaned into him, breathing uneven but determined. That masked man had meant to end them both, to burn the evidence, to bury the truth with the cabin. But the evidence was in Noah's arms, and the dog who found it refused to let it die. Noah looked at Hawk, jaw set. "We take this to the world, to the feds, to anyone who'll listen. No more running, no more hiding. They burned her cabin down. They almost killed you." Hawk's body steadied, just enough for him to shift closer, pressing his head against Noah's chest. Noah tightened his grip around the dog. "They think fear is going to stop us." He exhaled through the cold, watching the last of the cabin fall into itself, collapsing like a grave. They don't know who they're dealing with. He ran a hand down the dog's neck, feeling the tremor of pain, the strength under it, the stubborn heartbeat that refused to quiet. "We're taking them down, Hawk. All of them." Hawk blinked once. A slow, deliberate gesture. Agreement. A vow. Even wounded, he carried the same certainty he'd had on deployment, the same unwavering will. Noah looked out over the burning wreckage and made his own vow. This ends in daylight, not in darkness. The world looked different in morning light. The cabin was gone, nothing left but a blackened outline in the snow. Smoke still curled upward, thin as a dying breath. Noah stood there in the cold, Hawk's weight leaning against his leg as the sun pushed over the ridge. Hawk was alive, barely. His breathing was shallow, his burned flank wrapped in the only clean fabric Noah had. Every few minutes the dog pressed his nose to Noah's hand as if reminding him he was still here. Noah knelt beside him. "We're not stopping. Not after what they did to you. Not after what they did to her." Hawk blinked once, slow. Trust, resolve. Pain held behind clear eyes. Noah pulled out the sat phone, the one he kept only for emergencies, and opened the folder of evidence he had scanned during sleepless nights. Photos of contaminated soil, the journals, Wren's map, the recordings he'd made of Helios trucks in the mountains, videos of Hawk digging up the makeshift grave, the files he'd nearly lost in the fire. He selected them all, compressed, encrypted, addressed them to only one person, Julia Ray, investigative reporter, sharp, relentless, and a woman who owed his grandmother a debt from decades earlier when the old woman had protected her as a runaway teen looking for a place to hide. When Noah clicked send, something lifted inside his chest. Not relief, not safety, something closer to commitment. The kind soldiers made on long, silent nights, the kind he thought he was done making. The sat phone vibrated 5 minutes later. A single message, receiving. Don't move. Bringing help. Noah looked down the valley, nothing but trees and a faint glow from the rising sun. Then a second message. And Noah, thank you for trusting me, for trusting her. Noah shut the phone and whispered, "It's starting, Hawk." The dog exhaled softly, his strength draining, but his gaze fixed on the horizon. Hours later, a 4x4 truck barreled up the snowy trail toward what remained of the cabin. Noah reached instinctively for his rifle, but relaxed when he saw the familiar shape of a woman stepping out. Dark hair in a loose braid, camera bag slung over one shoulder. Julia Ray. She scanned the ruins once, eyes sharp, understanding everything without being told. Then she knelt beside Hawk. "My God, Noah! They did this! No, he dragged me out!" Noah said it quietly. "He saved me." Julia reached out and let Hawk sniff her hand. The dog didn't move much, but his nose brushed her fingers in faint recognition. "He's the reason we're all about to know the truth," she whispered. She stood and got to work, documenting the wreckage, the burn patterns, photographing the snow around the cabin. Every step she made was precise, purposeful, like someone gathering ammunition for a war she fully intended to win. By afternoon, 3 black SUVs and a Department of Justice helicopter appeared over the ridge, sending snow spiraling into the air. Agents fanned out instantly, securing the site, setting up perimeter markers, snapping photos, gathering samples. Noah watched them silently, one hand on Hawk's neck to steady him as the noise of the rotor blades grew louder. A woman in a dark coat approached, badge clipped to a belt. "Mr. Caldwell, I'm Agent Walker, DOJ Special Investigations. We received everything. It's enough to open a full federal case." Behind her, men and women in EPA jackets unloaded equipment, soil kits, containment crates, sealed vials. They were already moving towards the ridge trail. Walker continued. "We have reason to believe Helios Mining violated multiple federal statutes: illegal dumping, bribery, obstruction, possibly homicide. Your grandmother was closer to exposing them than anyone realized." Noah stared at the crater of ash where the cabin had been. She didn't just stumble into danger. They silenced her. Walker nodded. "And they tried to silence you too." Julia stepped up beside Noah, her expression hardened. "I'll take the story from here," she said. "National outlets, every local station. They won't bury it this time." Noah nodded once, but his eyes drifted back to Hawk, breathing shallow, fighting to stay awake. Agent Walker followed his gaze. "Our team called a vet. Best in the county. He's on the way." Minutes later, a pickup truck skidded to a stop near the trail. Dr. Avery Kim, the vet from Cedar Ridge Clinic, jumped out carrying a medical kit and blankets. Noah had never met her, but her reputation was well known. Her eyes widened when she saw Hawk. "Get him into the truck. Now." Together, she and Noah lifted Hawk, carefully, slowly, onto the padded truck bed. Hawk whimpered once, a sound so soft Noah nearly missed it. Avery pressed gauze gently to his burned flank. "He fought to save you," she said. "We're going to fight for him." Noah stepped back as Avery jumped into the driver's seat. The engine roared to life, and the truck raced down the mountain road, disappearing around the bend. Noah inhaled the cold air, steadying himself. Julia came to stand beside him. "You did everything you could. Now they'll do their part." He nodded, but his chest tightened. Hawk had survived war, survived fire, survived things no animal should endure. The idea of losing him now felt like losing the last piece of himself. Down below, more emergency vehicles arrived. Cameras followed. Reporters gathered at the perimeter, already shouting questions about Helios mining and corruption in Birch Hollow. Then came the moment Noah didn't expect. A second SUV pulled up. 2 agents climbed out. Between them, handcuffed, head down, was Sheriff Ethan Crow. The same man who told Noah the mountains were safe. The same man whose truck made Hawk growl every time it passed. Crow didn't fight, didn't yell, didn't deny anything. He just looked at Noah as he was dragged past. His voice came out low. "You should have stayed out of it." Noah didn't answer. Agent Walker stepped between them. "Sheriff Crow is being charged with bribery, destruction of evidence, multiple counts of obstruction, and conspiracy with Helios mining executives. If there was any doubt about the danger you were in, let this settle it." Noah watched them haul Crow away. He didn't feel triumph, just clarity. Julia touched his arm. "This isn't the end, but it's the beginning." Noah looked down the road where Avery had taken Hawk. Healing, justice, answers. They were finally in motion, but none of it mattered until Hawk came back home. 1 year later, the mountains had softened again. The cold still came early, the wind still swept down from the high ridges, but the world no longer felt like a thing trying to smother Noah Caldwell. It felt like a place rebuilding itself, slowly, stubbornly, the way old forests do after fire. The new cabin stood where the old one burned. Same footprint, same stones, same tin roof humming with winter air. But this one carried no ghosts, only memory. Noah stood on the porch with a mug of steaming coffee, watching the morning rise over Birch Hollow. Hawk lay at his feet, paws stretched long, his muzzle now brushed with grey. His gait had slowed. His joints complained on cold days, but his eyes still cut through the fog like they were made of steel. He wasn't a retired soldier. He was a sentinel, the kind that didn't need orders to know his post. Noah reached down and scratched behind his ears. Hawk lifted his head and leaned into the touch, slow and deliberate, acknowledging affection in the way older dogs do, without urgency, with certainty. "You earned the rest, old man." Hawk exhaled, a low, content breath. The trail leading to the cabin had changed, too. Once it was nothing but a forgotten gravel road swallowed by weeds. Now a carved wooden sign stood at the bend. Hawk's Trail, dedicated to the canine who found the truth. Noah hadn't attended the ceremony. Julia had insisted he should. The town council had practically begged him. But he stayed home. He didn't need applause. Hawk didn't either. But he kept the photo a ranger sent him afterward. Kids from the school holding handmade signs with Hawk's name, their boots in the snow, laughter frozen in frames. Hawk had watched Noah look at that photo many times. Every time, the dog thumped his tail twice, as if humoring the humans and their ceremonies. Noah smiled at the memory. Inside, the rebuilt cabin smelled of cedar and fresh paint. Reports and field samples lay scattered on the dinner table. He was helping EPA verify contamination sites now, tagging illegal dumping grounds, filing monthly updates on water quality. He didn't wear a badge, didn't hold a title, but people listened to him, sometimes too closely. The people of Birch Hollow treated him differently, now, more cautious, more respectful. At the general store, folks offered him pie he didn't want. At the post office, the clerk always double-checked his mail for him. And every week or so, a box of jerky for Hawk appeared on his porch with no note. Justice had consequences, and gratitude in small towns had a strange way of arriving quietly. Hawk lifted his head suddenly, ears tilting toward the tree line. Noah lowered his mug. Someone's coming? No bark, no growl. Hawk simply watched. And moments later, a familiar SUV rolled into view. Julia Ray stepped out, bundled in a thick coat, camera bag slung across her shoulder. She gave a small wave. Got a minute, Noah motioned her up the porch. Hawk didn't stand, but his tail swept once across the wood. His version of a welcome. Julia knelt beside him. You look older, buddy. Still better looking than Noah, though. Hawk blinked slowly. Noah rolled his eyes. She stood and handed Noah a folder. Helios Mining. Final rulings. Full convictions. Massive fines. Prison time for executives. A multi-year plan to restore the mountain ecosystem. Federal oversight for decades. Noah flipped through the pages. And Crow. Julia's face darkened. Pleaded guilty. 20 years. Noah nodded once. Justice wasn't pretty, but it landed where it needed to. Julia hesitated, then added, The last thing your grandmother wrote. I think she'd want you to see it now. She pulled out a yellowed page, carefully protected by plastic. Noah swallowed hard as he recognized the handwriting. If someone finds this, my grandson is the one who'll finish what I couldn't. He has the stubbornness of a Caldwell and the heart of a soldier. And if he's found Hawk, then I know he won't be alone. Noah stared at the words until they blurred. He blinked them clear, jaw tight. Julia rested a hand on his arm. You gave her justice, and you gave Hawk a life worth being remembered for. Noah looked down at the dog beside him. Hawk shifted his weight and nudged Noah's wrist with his nose, a gentle reminder of presence. A reminder he wasn't going anywhere yet. Later that afternoon, when Julia left, the cabin fell quiet again. Snow began drifting across the clearing. Noah stepped back onto the porch, Hawk beside him. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It wasn't a warning. It was peace. Hard-earned peace. Hawk settled at Noah's feet, letting out a long sigh, his old bones settling. But even now, eyes half closed, he still watched the tree line, still tracked the wind, still protected the cabin, the land, the truth, a soldier to the end. Noah sat beside him, coffee cooling in his hands. You know, he murmured, there were days I didn't think either of us would make it this far. Hawk didn't move, didn't react, but his ear twitched once. Acknowledgement, agreement, a veteran's quiet yes. The mountain breathed, the cabin held warm light, and the dog who had saved everything lay guarding the place he'd carved into history. Hawk's trail, a name carved into wood, a legacy carved into something deeper. The knock on the cabin door came on a bright Saturday morning, carried lightly on the breeze like it belonged to another world. Noah glanced up from the water reports spread across his table. Hawk lifted his head first, ears pricking, his old instincts still sharper than any alarm system. Easy, boy. Hawk didn't growl. Instead, he rose slowly to his feet and walked towards the door with a confident, measured pace. Whatever was outside, it wasn't danger. It was curiosity. Noah opened the door to find 3 teenagers bundled in oversized jackets, notebooks pressed to their chests. The youngest, a girl with freckles and a nervous smile, spoke first. "Are you Noah Caldwell?" Noah nodded cautiously. "Depends who's asking. We're from Birch Hollow High," she said, straightening as if bracing for judgment. "We're doing a project on local history. Our teacher said, well, your grandmother is kind of a legend." Noah blinked, surprised in a way he wasn't sure how to hide. "My grandmother, Mabel Caldwell." The girl nodded vigorously. "Yes, sir. Her work on environmental justice, the things she uncovered. The state even uses her notes to teach case studies now." The boy next to her added quietly, "We heard you." Helped finish what she started. Noah opened the door wider. "Come in. It's cold out." They stepped inside carefully, almost reverently, as if crossing into a story they'd only heard whispered. Hawk moved aside but stayed close, settling beside Noah's chair with a soft exhale. His grey muzzle rested on his paws, but his eyes remained watchful, present. The kids exchanged looks. "He's really here," the taller boy murmured. "That's Hawk." Hawk's ear twitched. Noah hid a smile. Even now, the dog carried his own gravity, a legend without trying to be one. The freckled girl opened her notebook. "If it's okay, we wanted to ask about everything. About your grandmother, about what happened here, and about him." She nodded toward Hawk with a quiet kind of awe. Noah sat back, letting the silence settle before he spoke. "My grandmother wasn't looking to be famous. She just didn't know how to walk away when something was wrong, even when it cost her." The kids leaned in. She started small. Water samples. Dead trout in the creek. Plants turning brown for no reason. Everyone said she was being dramatic, that she was imagining things. Was she afraid? The girl asked. Always? Noah laughed once, breath soft, remembering her tight smile. But she believed fear didn't excuse silence. The room grew still, heavy with meaning. The boy with glasses whispered, "That's kind of incredible." Noah nodded. "Courage isn't loud. My grandmother showed me that. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it looks like a notebook full of questions no one wants answered." The students scribbled furiously. "And Hawk?" the tall boy asked suddenly. "How did he know? How did he find everything?" Noah looked, down at his dog. Hawk had lowered his head onto Noah's boot, eyes half closed, listening. "Hawk doesn't chase glory," Noah said softly. "He reacts to truth. He feels it before I understand it. He always has." He paused, letting the memories surface without flooding him. "The night the cabin burned, I thought I was done. He dragged me out through smoke so thick I couldn't see my own hands. He didn't hesitate. Not once." The girl's pen trembled slightly. "He saved you. More than once. And more than just my life. He protected what mattered, the evidence, the truth. If any of that burned, Helios would have buried the whole town under lies." The boy with glasses looked at Hawk the way some people look at monuments. Quiet, reverent. "Did he ever get scared?" Noah smiled. "He gets careful. He gets focused. But fear's different. Fear paralyzes." Hawk moves. Hawk didn't lift his head, but his tail beat once, slow, a soldier acknowledging his record. Noah continued, voice lower now. "The hardest part wasn't fighting Helios. It was realizing my grandmother died because she stood her ground. She knew the danger. She just believed some truths were worth more than safety." The students fell silent. A moment stretched, softened. The freckled girl cleared her throat. "What do you think she wanted people to learn?" Noah took a long breath. Then he looked at Hawk. The dog met his eyes, steady, unwavering. That one person, even an old woman in a forgotten cabin, can carry enough truth to shake a mountain, and that sometimes the quietest voices, or the quietest dogs, save entire towns. The girl swallowed hard, then wrote something on the top of her page in quick handwriting. Legacy isn't what you leave, it's what you protect. She looked up. Did she really say, "If I go missing, don't trust anyone in town"? Noah nodded. Yes. And she was right. A shadow of the truth passed over their faces. The tall boy leaned in. And now? Do you trust them? Noah allowed himself a soft smile. More than before. Less than I ever will completely. But that's okay. My grandmother didn't want blind trust. She wanted accountability. The room brightened a little. The kids seemed to understand. When they finally stood to leave, the girl knelt down beside Hawk. "Thank you," she whispered, "for the truth." Hawk lifted his head and pressed his muzzle gently into her hand. A blessing. Permission to carry the story forward. Outside, as they walked back down Hawk's trail, Noah watched from the doorway. He felt a tug of something in his chest, a mixture of grief and pride, woven together the way legacy often is. He looked down at Hawk. Still here, still guarding, still listening. "We did good, didn't we, old man?" Hawk leaned against his leg, eyes bright despite the grey in his fur, and in that quiet moment between breath and wind, Noah knew something with absolute clarity. The truth his grandmother died for didn't end with justice. It lived on in the kids carrying notebooks down the trail. It lived in the rebuilt cabin. In the creek healing. In every person who realized silence could be broken. And most of all, it lived in the dog lying at his feet. The dog who never barked unless it mattered. The dog who carried the truth through fire. Hawk, the last soldier still on watch. The studio lights were softer than Noah expected. Not harsh, not interrogating, just warm enough to make the small Colorado local news set feel like a living room rather than a stage. The host, a woman in her 40s with the calm voice of someone who had interviewed every kind of person, smiled as Noah sat down. Hawk eased in beside him, lowering himself with a slow, practiced motion. His old joints protested, but his eyes were as alert as ever. The crew whispered final adjustments. A cameraman knelt to capture Hawk at eye level. The host leaned forward, lowering her voice. "He really is something, isn't he?" Noah glanced down. Hawk rested his chin on Noah's boot, completely still. He always knew when attention was on him, yet never performed. He was just himself. That was enough. He always has been. The host nodded, then gestured to the producer. "Red light. Recording. This is a special segment for our Colorado Stories series." She began. "Today we're speaking with Noah Caldwell, the veteran whose discovery in an old mountain cabin helped expose one of the largest environmental crimes in state history. And joining him is the canine partner who made it all possible. Hawk." The camera widened. Applause from the small audience drifted in from behind the lights. Hawk didn't react, not even a tail flick. He was watching the room, not the praise. The host smiled at Noah. "So, Noah, the question we all want to know. How did you even know something was hidden in your grandmother's cabin?" Noah took a breath. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he placed a steady hand on Hawk's head. The dog leaned into it. Subtle, grounding. "I didn't?" Noah said, voice quiet but firm. "He did." A ripple moved through the audience. Noah continued, eyes softening. "I walked into that cabin carrying memory and noise. He walked in carrying instinct. He sensed something no human could. He knew the truth was there long before I did. And he refused to let it die." The camera zoomed in slowly on Hawk's face. His eyes were deep, steady, reflecting the studio lights like small embers, calm, wise, a storyteller in silence. The host's smile faded into something more serious. People say you two walked through fire together. Literally. Noah nodded once. He saved me. Again. And he saved the evidence. If Hawk hadn't gone back into that burning cabin, Helios Mining would have erased everything. The land, the proof, my grandmother's legacy. Hawk shifted, pressing a little closer to Noah's leg. The old dog knew what words meant, even if he didn't understand all of them. He knew tone. He knew truth. Noah looked down. He didn't bark when they cuffed the sheriff. He didn't run when the flames broke the roof. He didn't hesitate when he had every reason to. He just moved the way he always has, toward what mattered. The host swallowed visibly, the emotion in her throat impossible to hide. Your grandmother? She would be proud. Noah exhaled. Not sadness, not grief, just something tender. I think she'd say Hawk listened to her better than anyone ever did. A few people in the audience chuckled, wiping at their eyes. The host leaned forward again. And Noah, after everything that happened, after the trials and investigations, after the cabin burned and was rebuilt, what stays with you the most? Noah didn't answer immediately. He looked at Hawk. The old dog lifted his head, meeting Noah's gaze with a calm, silent trust that had seen them through deserts, forests, and fire. What stays with me, Noah said slowly, is that truth doesn't always roar. Sometimes it waits, sometimes it hides under stone, and sometimes it walks beside you for years before you're ready to hear it. The host straightened. That's beautiful. Noah shook his head lightly. It's not beautiful. It's just real. And sometimes the realest things in this world walk on four legs and never ask for anything in return. The red recording light dimmed for a moment as the director signaled the final question. The host turned slightly toward the main camera. Noah, one last thing. If you could tell our viewers one message, one takeaway from everything you lived through, what would it be? Noah looked straight into the camera. His hand stayed on Hawk's scarred shoulder. The dog didn't move. My message is simple, he said. What's your story with a loyal pet? A quiet fell over the studio, the kind of quiet that held truth in the air. Because maybe you've had a dog who protected you when you didn't know you needed protecting. Maybe you've had one who stayed when the world walked out. Maybe you still have one sleeping at the foot of your bed right now, guarding more than you'll ever realize. The camera zoomed out. Noah's voice softened. Tell their stories. Honor them. They deserve that. They always have. Hawk turned his head slightly, lifting one ear, as if listening to the silent stories living in the hearts of everyone watching. Noah stood, placing a hand on Hawk's harness as the old dog rose beside him. Together they walked off the stage, shadows stretching under the warm studio lights. Just before the credits rolled, the host added one last line over the final shot of Hawk's steady brown eyes. If this story moved you, support the German Shepherd channel, because some heroes never speak, but they're the reason the truth survives. Fade out.